Welcome to the Derm-It Don't Swear About Skincare podcast. We're here with our end of year review and talking about social media trends with none other than my social media manager, Amanda.
Board certified social media manager.
Exactly.
So I fit in. All right, so we're going over the 2025 skincare trends. These are all online, which is what makes them unsettling and slightly terrifying. First off, we've got melanotan and tanning drops. So melanotan, as I understand, is injectable and ingestible. Correct?
There are different ways you can get it, yeah. And then it's important to point out there's two different types of melanotan. So there's a type 1 and a type 2, and the type 2 is what we're talking about. That was developed back in the 90s. It's considered an illicit drug.
Nice.
So something that people can order sort of illegally online, banned in the US, UK, other countries, and it was coined the Barbie drug. So I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it was because you get tan, it can suppress your appetite, and in particular for men, it could cause them to have an erection longer. And for women, maybe some reports have increased sexual arousal as well. So it was coined this Barbie drug. And so people are still using it because that desire to tan is still there.
Is there a difference between injectable and ingestible, and how does it relate to carrot eating?
Well, a little bit different. So melanotan's a little different than what you would think of. I think classically when people think about the tanning drops, which actually then tanning drops are a little confusing because you can buy ones that we would support as dermatologists that you can add in to a moisturizer, and it can kind of that fake tan that we tend to promote, similar to like a spray tan. But then you have the drops that people want to consume or drink. And I think that's the other area where we don't recommend that because of potential health issues. So tanning drops can be a little confusing depending upon what you're referencing. So the ones that you typically people will try to drink, we don't recommend. But the other ones that you can actually put in a moisturizer like your Cetaphil, your CeraVe on a daily basis, those we tend to be okay with as dermatologists, and you can find those in your beauty stores, things like that. So I do think there's like some confusion with the drop piece. The ones you drink, no, not Trot. The ones you can add into your moisturizer, they can be Trot, and we prefer people to get a tan that way, or how you might buy an over-the-counter self-tanner product, or you might actually go and get a spray tan. That's the way to get a tan safely.
If we're not drinking tanning drops, are we allowed to eat 10 carrots a day?
Yes. So those drops too that people talk about, often they are going to be derived from carotenoids or these things that are included in vegetables, plant material that we typically you might actually eat, but nobody wants to eat a giant bag of carrots to get tan all the time. But these are derivatives that are put into those drops that people want to drink and then get a glow. Often it's more of an orangey glow, so it's not something that's always cosmetically acceptable either. But we tell people stay clear of those. Again, go for those bronzing type drops that you add into your moisturizer and apply to your skin, do your self tanner, or definitely go and get a spray tan.
What kind of things can people expect to happen if you ingest too much of those?
It's hard to know everything with melanotan or those ingestible drops that can happen because they aren't regulated. But some of the reports, when they've looked at what could happen, definitely can get GI upset. So people get nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Some people, especially with melanotan, have had impact on blood pressure where it's been elevated. They've had flushing. They have neurological problems. And then more concerning, it can actually cause internal organ damage, potentially to the liver or the kidneys. So some of this has been reported in the literature, and because we just don't know enough about it, we don't have good studies to establish safety or efficacy, we tell people stay clear of those things. Getting a tan that way is just not worth it. Yeah, so if you are stimulating your melanocytes, which are your pigment producing cells, to produce pigment, typically they're doing so in response to ultraviolet light to simply protect your skin. It's our body's way of protecting itself. That's why we tell people there's no such thing as a safe tan. A tan is truly sun damage because that's why your body's doing it. So when you actually go and get a spray tan, or you're using a self bronzer that you're doing, maybe your Jergens Everyday Glow, and you're trying to get that little bit of tan, you're not really stimulating those melanocytes per se as much as you're adding a little bit of temporary pigmentation to the skin to provide you with that bronze look that you're going for.
So obviously this is not Trot.
Not Trot.
Which, if you're new here, that means hot.
Not
hot to Trot. Not hot to Trot, not Trot.
Melanotan, not Trot.
Not
100%
hot.
not Trot.
Perfect. And number 2, we've got your favorite, beef tallow.
Oh yeah.
This is rendered animal fat. They believe that it mimics the skin's natural lipids and supports the barrier. So it's usually, the anti-chemical movement, and they say that our ancestors used it.
Yeah,
so
it's possible. Yeah.
Is there any dermatologic logic behind this, or does formulation matter more than ingredient simplicity?
Yeah, I'm probably not the big hater on beef tallow as much as my colleagues are. You know, I tell people, is it Trot? It's Trot-ish. Like, there's some value to beef tallow if you look at what's in it. It does have fatty acids in it, like oleic acid, that can help support a healthy skin barrier. In addition, there's vitamins A and E, which are antioxidants, so it can also be potentially helpful. Do we have studies, though, to support it? No, and that's where a lot of us dermatologists go, and I think it drives patients crazy, because we're like, what's the data? What does the study show? And sometimes you just have to rely on anecdotal evidence. Your patient comes in and says, my skin's doing a lot better. I'm using this beef tallow product over, yes, maybe this other product you recommended. And to me, it's not the end of the world, right? If they're still doing sun protection and they're using their sunscreen and they're doing a great cleanser and moisturizer, maybe they're doing a topical vitamin A in the evening, like a retinoid or tretinoin, or vitamin C in the morning, they're doing great skincare. And beef tallow, they feel like really helps supplement that moisturizer and works for them. I'm not going to make a big deal of it or argue it.
Right.
You know, if you're worried about what could happen, it can be rather occlusive. So some people who tend to break out, it may not be the best option for, right? It can cause more acne, and it's an occlusive agent too. So if you did put on your topical retinoid or an exfoliant, sometimes adding it over top of it could actually make those, you know, more potent, and then you could have some irritation factor actually because of how you're using it. So a lot of people, if they want to use, you know, beef tallow, I tell them you always are going to take a little tester behind the neck here, see if you're allergic to it, and then let's just see how your skin responds. But you want to be careful of the occlusive nature. So again, do I always recommend it? No, it's not my first go-to. But if I have a patient who sort of leans toward products like that and wants to integrate it in, I can work with them to see if it's going to help. But I'd also tell them I have other things that are supported by better evidence that are going to be beneficial too for your skin.
Okay. Common questions online are, why did it help their dryness but worsen their acne? Which I know you kind of just touched a little bit on that.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. It would potentially break out more acne-prone skin.
Yeah, so it's just like slugging, you know. Right? So you have, you know, a petrolatum product, you use Vaseline, Aquaphor, a CeraVe ointment, you know, Aveeno, you use an ointment-based product, you're trying to really seal in a moisturizer that you put on first and apply it. You know, it can be occlusive, and the same thing can happen with beef tallow for some patients. And then some patients, their skin's very sensitive to that, and it aggravates their acne. So it wouldn't be my first go-to in an acne-prone patient. And I think that's one thing too that people don't realize. You may think it sounds like a great idea, and this is the problem with trends. They sound like everything to jump on, but every trend isn't for every patient, right? Yeah. There's some that we don't think really have any merit, then some might have a little bit, but again, it has to be specific to the patient and their unique skin needs.
So mostly Trot, just depends on the person.
Yeah, I tell people it's Trot-ish, yeah. Okay. So I tell, like, when it scale a, you know, out of 10, I give like a 4 out of 10, you know, is what I tell people. And again, I'm not gonna, you know, push it, but I'm not the big hater that, you know, that beef tallow is evil. You know, it's now being used, you know, all over the place. It's very popular now.
I know. Obviously, you've talked about double cleansing before. We like double cleansing, removes makeup, SPF. So we like an oil cleanser followed up with a foaming cleanser, correct?
Yeah, usually I tell an oil. So when you double cleanse, I like double cleansing. I told you it's really not that much of an extra step. If you're putting sunscreen on every day and makeup, you need to take it off. And so you're going to do something anyway. So the double cleanse is 2 steps. One, you're going to use the micellar water or oil-based cleanser first, followed then by typically a gentle cleanser. And sometimes people might mix that cleanser up depending upon their own unique skin needs. But for the majority of people to recommend it, I tell them go with the micellar water oil-based, then a gentle.
So if people worry about stripping their skin, is that why the oil-based first is important?
No, not necessarily. The oil base is important because it actually dissolves makeup and sunscreen. So if you think about it, makeup tends to have other components to it, and you need to kind of break that down a little bit. And our typical cleansers just don't tend to remove all of it. So the micellar water oil based actually helps dissolve that makeup and part of the sunscreen components too. So it actually kind of takes that away. So for people that are worried that, like, ooh, I have dry skin, sensitive skin, a double cleanse sounds too harsh. Typically it's not, because they're going to be gentle in nature. And again, you're following with a gentle cleanser. And if you do have extra dry skin, you could follow with a hydrating cleanser. If you're a little bit on the oily end, you might have, you know, a salicylic acid cleanser, especially if you have acne or something like that. So you could vary that second step a little bit, but sometimes when we don't know, we don't want to recommend too many things. So we tend to say just go gentle, right? Or go with a basic one, and then talk with your dermatologist about changing that up if you need to.
There's a theory, or at least just a narrative out there, that double cleansing with an oil cleanser specifically, not even micellar water, that it can shrink your pores. And it can get out sebaceous filaments and things like that. Is that true?
No, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, shrinking your pores, our pores are genetically determined, the size. I got the big ones, you know. So I tell people, you know, keeping your pores clean and open is what actually tends to make them look less apparent or large. If they get clogged with material, could be a sebaceous filament, you know, it's kind of little, I call them oil worms, you know, people have this a lot on their face, particularly the nose area. I get them all the time. And then also too, I tell you, if you get clogged with like a black head, white head, it's going to stretch that pore for and make it look larger. So if you are able to get that material out, it tends to make them look smaller.
Okay.
So double cleansing wouldn't be the primary purpose to really, necessarily do that per se. But if you have a little bit of superficial dirt or debris kind of collecting, yeah, it'll help get rid of that. And makeup, if it's kind of there, will help a little bit too to kind of clear that out. But in general, pore size, yeah, the bad news, we're kind of stuck with what we've got. There are some mechanical things procedure-wise you can do over time that might help them look a little smaller, refined, if you will, and then topical retinoids as well.
So if somebody thinks that their pore size has shrunk or they're less apparent from double cleansing, is it most likely that they're just cleaning their face better than they were before?
Probably,
Okay.
yeah, because there's no magic wand. If we could invent that with double cleanse, I think I get everyone to do it.
Yeah.
And it's the extra step, right? We all want, what's easy, and we love that too as dermatologists, concise and simple.
Yeah.
But the double cleanse for me is a must if you're using that sunscreen or makeup.
Okay.
And it's not just for faces. That's one
Yeah.
thing I would add.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know too. The next thing I want to talk about, this is kind of a two-parter. So I think it's Cicaplast, or is it Cicaplast?
I say Cicaplast.
Okay. Cicaplast has been a huge trend and barrier creams and things like that. And the two-parter here is diaper cream, but they're both being used for healing skin barrier, acne, and irritation and things like that. What do you think about Cicaplast? How often should people use them, and which one is better?
I love Cicaplast. It's one of my favorites. And using other barrier creams are great too. So going back to kind of the fact, I think you talked about it could help with the skin barrier. I think that's very true. If you think about it, a baby's bottom, you're protecting it from urine, you're protecting it from poop, right? Because they get irritated. And so it creates a nice barrier protectant. Well, your hands, other parts of the body too, get exposed to a lot of other things that irritate it. So those products can be useful there. When people put them on the face, it sometimes can be helpful. But again, it's the same thing we talked about before, where if it's too occlusive in that acne-prone patient, those might not be the best products for them. It actually might be too much for them, where it could cause them to break out more. And the patient that can tolerate it or is very dry and it's beneficial, those being added on even to the face can be helpful too.
Okay.
But they are great products. I definitely think as treatment for acne, not such a smart plan because of how they can actually cause acne for a lot of patients.
Okay.
And I think people don't realize that at the time, or maybe they think it has a slight drying effect. We have so many other options that are proven with studies, with data, that we can say, hey, this actually works for acne. If you have acne, let me prescribe this, or we can recommend even some over-the-counter medications that can be effective too. Primarily using that for acne, not the best plan. And then some of the acne ingredients they might be using, if they're putting that over top, it might be a little too much too, where it's too occlusive, and it could add to additional irritation because it might increase the absorption into the skin.
Okay, so Trot, but to be used for irritation, barrier repair only. Skin barrier healing, that's my next one here. This has been a trend for a while, is skin barrier healing, which you've obviously talked about several times in a lot of these trends, but does that feel like an overused buzzword to you? Are there a lot of things being promoted as skin barrier healing? Do you feel like people worry too much about their skin barrier or not worry enough? Or how do you feel about that?
I like that people are becoming familiar with the term a little bit more, because we do need to think of our skin as more than just how great it looks in the vanity component. But usually if your skin's healthier and it's functioning as the barrier should, it's going to look good. That's what I usually tell my patients. You can actually have the best of both worlds. You're going to accomplish the goal. Your skin is a barrier, right? It's your protective armor against the world. And so repairing it, making sure it's strong is really important. And then all the things that we're doing to it to disrupt it create a lot of problems. Now, sometimes we're purposely causing some disruption, because when we do that, it can help, stimulate collagen and other things, but we shouldn't do it to the point that it actually creates, breaks in the skin, cracks in the skin. It actually can lead to a disruption of the microbiome, all the fun bacteria, yeast, fungus, all the things, viruses that live on skin that need to be there and live in harmony. So when we talk about the barrier, you just want your skin to be a strong barrier that's balanced.
Okay.
And you have to be careful what you're doing, because if you rock that balance off, that's where we see a lot of skin problems for patients. So I like that people are thinking about a little bit more kind of this technical term. And yeah, products are being marketed that way too, which I think is important as well. And it can be a balance. And everyone's barrier is a little different because of just maybe our age, how much sun exposure we've had over time, genetics as well, and then other things we've been exposed to like pollution. So our skin barriers are different, throughout our lifetime, and also just based on our background. So I think it's important that we really focus on it, on being so important, because it's essential for skin health. Yeah.
So extra Trot.
Yes.
Trotties.
I like the barrier conversation.
Yeah.
But people can always take it too far, as you know too.
Always.
And again, marketing, can always use that to kind of pull people in. So it's still a conversation about your own individual unique needs and what your skin needs, so that we create a good balance with that barrier.
Trotties worry about their skin barrier.
Yeah.
Would you say it's kind of similar to gut health? The same way you need that balance of
Yeah.
bacteria and things
Mhm.
like that. Maybe if you hear bacteria, fungus, virus, you think, oh, we don't want that. But if it lives in harmony, that's a good
Correct. Because we have
Okay.
a lot of things in our skin. It's like a petri dish, like anything else.
Yeah.
So I tell
interesting.
people, hydrated skin with a good balance of your microbiome is healthy skin.
Okay.
You're going to be less likely to rash, get dried out, get inflamed, get irritated, have underlying conditions like acne, eczema. We're going to be able to treat those more effectively because you're going after the foundation of your skin. You're making sure the bones, if you will, of your skin are solid and they're healthy.
How long would it take to heal a skin barrier?
It varies. Some people
Okay.
have a very injured barrier. Like, so if you take, for example, somebody with terrible eczema, their skin barrier could be severely impaired. They have a lot of inflammation, the immune system's turned on in the skin, so it's feeling this process. They may have scratched. So if they've scratched their skin, they may have what we call excoriation marks everywhere. They can have bacterial infection now, of course, too. So for lack of a better term, their barrier could just be a hot mess. And then you just somebody comes in, my skin's a little bit irritated. Maybe they're using a tretinoin too frequently, and their
Okay.
skin's a little dried out and irritated, and we just have to reset their skin.
Okay.
So it just depends on sort of
Yeah.
what people are doing, underlying conditions. So we see a whole range, a wide range. And then sometimes
Okay.
your barrier's doing great and you can't help it. The weather flips and all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
great, now my skin barrier is again a hot mess. So you have to modify and you have to roll with it. It's dynamic. Your skin's dynamic based on kind of the environment, what's around you, your immune system, and any underlying skin condition.
So next up, we're going to talk about the morning shed, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
This is also a two-part, maybe multi-part question. So obviously people are using tapes. They're mouth taping. I'm a mouth taper because I'm a mouth breather.
Yeah, a little story.
Really embarrassing. I didn't know that until my husband demonstrated how it looks, which is horrible.
We should insert some video of that.
No, you would never see my face again. So people are mouth taping, they're using tape for fine lines and stuff like that, which we'll also get to that. It's another huge trend right now. Mostly it's, lip masks, overnight absorbing masks. What do you think about it?
Well, I think the shedding thing's kind of crazy. I'm all about like working smarter, not harder. And so I think with twofold, what bothers me about it, one is this pursuit of perfection. And then sometimes, maybe I'm a bad dermatologist because I tell you, do you really need to pursue perfect skin? I'm like, no, you need to be in the best skin that works for you. And we all come with different skin issues and problems. It doesn't mean we can't get it much better, but in a world where nobody ever has a breakout or a flaw, it's just not feasible. And I think we set people up for failure and we feed into body image issues people have. And then of course the things we're talking about on social media, right? This idea of perfection. And I love to be a perfectionist, but I also willing to accept things that are imperfect. And I always tell people, your skin doesn't define you. You're so much more than that. So that's one thing I don't love about this trend, the perfectionism piece. And then two, it's just the obsession with doing all these steps, right? We want skincare to be simple, concise. That's the biggest thing. It doesn't need to be complex. And I think this creates like this whole regimen that really doesn't have probably, from our standpoint, a lot of value in the long run for what it's going to do for your skin. Now, somebody just wants to spend their time doing that and they're ritualistic and they just find the process relaxing. I'm like, go for it. But if you're truly trying to improve things for your skin, we have better things that, again, have data behind them and studies that just show they work better.
Yeah.
But it is entertaining to watch. And I have to give a shout out there for people that have the dedication.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing. Yeah.
So is glass skin actually achievable?
I mean, I think it's what you're trying to go for. Is it achievable? Probably for some patients, they can get more of that look. But a lot of people might have underlying sun damage or wrinkles that are already there, or again, they have issues with acne, so they can't use some of those products. So does it mean we can't get them to a point where they can try to go after a glass skin? Like, no, I think working toward that is good. I think we always should strive to do our best, but also we know in life that our best is going to be different than your best, right? There's always somebody who's smarter, taller, prettier, and can do the job maybe better than us. And for skin, it doesn't mean we're not going to work toward that, but I think just to have that balance, a little bit of humility would give people so much better peace of mind and really help with, I think, our self-esteem and confidence that is driven by skin having to be perfect.
I agree. So for an overnight absorbing mask, most of them are collagen or extra hydrating. But obviously with hydration masks, I feel like with what we've talked about, it might work for you, it might not. But with collagen specifically, we talked a little bit about this last year, that you need hydrolyzed collagen, I believe is what it's called.
Oh, when you're doing like supplements, we talk about hydrolyzed collagen and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it actually work through a mask?
Yeah, so I think that's the thing with these masks. I think if you are looking for kind of like a short-term plump effect, these masks can be beneficial, right?
Okay.
Now, most of the time, even though they may have collagen in them, a lot of them have hyaluronic acid or other humectants. They're actually pulling water into the skin, either from the air or from deeper layers, and that's what's giving you that beautiful plump look. So I love these hydrating masks. If, I've been traveling, I'm a little dry, I have an event I'm going to. So to me, I think there's benefit there in the short term. Do these masks, we have data show these are going to stimulate and create collagen in the skin? No, we have great data for things like tretinoin that show that it is really the go for that.
Yeah.
And so to do these, we just have to set expectations. If you like doing the mask, because to me it's fun to do a mask, right? It's relaxing, get a cup of, coffee, or, maybe you're a glass of wine person at the end of the day, just a little self-care. Just understand, again, expectations. And I think that's what we have to set, that it's going to help with that more immediate plump, but this isn't really going to be stimulating collagen for you in the long run.
Okay, good to know. Another part of the morning shed obviously is the face taping versus Botox. We've got 2 Botox users right here. Does that help any? Because there are frownies, which I believe is just tape. Some people use just whatever tape they find that's not irritating to them, and then we also have scar. Is it scar tape that they say promote collagen for your fine lines? Does any of that actually work better than Botox?
Yeah, I think no. So office supplies don't replace neuromodulators, like I tell you. So toxins are still the way to go, especially for those wrinkles we get with movement, right? Now face taping is interesting in that it could help with lines to develop potentially from like sleep creases, and so when we sleep, especially if you're a side sleeper, you can develop lines over time from actually sleeping. A little different than the lines we're getting from like smiling, raising our eyebrows, the lines that we actually go after with neurotoxins like Botox, Dysport, Daxiphysium, and the whole gamut of them. So I think maybe could help a little bit with sleep lines per se, but in general I think no, it's not worth, I think, the investment in time. You're much better off using your sunscreen, and then also a form of vitamin A, other antioxidants like vitamin C that we know promote collagen development over time. They reverse the damage we do to our skin from sun exposure as well as pollution, and they're actually going to have that promotion for lines. So to a tape, again, I don't think so valuable. Definitely can interfere with breathing as much as you've been using it to help with breathing. And then the adhesive part people forget about. We see a lot of irritation from it, and so I don't think it's really necessary worth the trade-off, the time or the investment, especially because we just don't have the studies to support it, and we've got great other options for you to actually achieve those goals.
So morning shed, do we think it's Trot or not?
Totally not.
And face taping, not Trot.
Not Trot.
Not Trot.
No.
So red light masks, can those replace Botox or anything like that at all? What kind of benefits does that
I tell you, with red light devices, not really replacement. I always think of them as an add-in to help support all the other things you're doing to maintain your skin health. In particular, yes, people are using them for fine lines, wrinkling, as well as even potentially acne. So we tell them a little different than what you can get, in an in-office procedure. So not going to be as potent, but I often tell people, yes, they can be supportive if you're doing in-office red light. They can help maintain results. The hard part with doing it at home is consistency. Typically, to see the results most people want, you're going to be doing it frequently throughout the week. Some people will argue, based on the device, they'll have recommendations. Does it need to be daily? Does it need to be 4 days a week, 5 days a week? It's consistent. And most people say, yeah, it probably needs to be almost every day to have the full benefit, depending upon the device that you may have. And so I think that's the big piece there, is that it's just hard to be that consistent. But again, if people like it, they can do it periodically. They may see some benefit. There's different settings sometimes on these devices too for acne or fine lines or wrinkling. So you can use those, in conjunction with each other, depending upon what you're trying to treat. So totally a great add-in is what I tell people to what they're doing. So fully support those if people are going to use those devices. And then again, you just want to make sure that they actually say FDA cleared. That's one thing as a dermatologist when we recommend particular devices. Everyone has their favorite, but that is something you want to look for, that actual wording, because they will put other FDA claims on it, but really it's FDA cleared. That's the important piece.
LED masks, Trot, but they're not a replacement for toxins.
No, not I always think of things as, we always build on things in dermatology. I tell there's no one that's going to fix everything, but it can accomplish certain goals. And then I'd also say with red light devices, one thing to take into account, if somebody is prone to hyperpigmentation or has melasma, it could potentially make those conditions worse. So it's not always a good fit. So again, it's one of those things, trends can catch on, we can support them, but you really need to look at the individual patient and their skin needs.
And another thing too I wanted to add is, you were talking about building in dermatology and there's never going to be a replacement. Aging is a privilege.
It is.
People are way too focused on anti-aging. You will not be 90 with your red light mask, Botox, frownies.
Unless you're Martha Stewart.
Morning, Martha Stewart is the exception.
Yes, but I tell people it's just one of those things, you embrace it, you focus on your skin health, and that's going to lead to your best outcome for skin. So that's why also too I'm so surprised when people will spend hundreds of dollars on different skincare products, and I'll even ask them, well, do you use sunscreen every day? And often they say no, and I'm shocked where they could get a $25 sunscreen that would actually serve them better than some of these products they're spending hundreds of dollars on.
I'm saving the best for last.
Ooh,
I'm excited.
This should be good.
We're not there yet.
No.
We're gonna talk about.
That was a letdown. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I gotta keep you hooked.
Yes.
So skin cycling.
Mm-hmm.
This has kind of come back up, at least on my social media in recent months. Was a big thing like a few years ago. It's alternating exfoliation nights, retinoid nights, and recovery nights. Do you think that that's... Well, I want to hear your thoughts on it, and I want to know if it's not for everyone, who is it for?
I love skin cycling.
Oh, okay.
So this was developed by Dr. Whitney Bowe, and it was kind of coined and went viral on TikTok. And it was really meant to try to help patients and people do skincare routines that have potential irritation factor to them, tolerate ingredients, right? Topical retinoids, vitamin A creams can be irritating, cause redness, increase skin cell turnover, people get dry with them. Same thing too when you exfoliate, right? And people want the best of both worlds. They often want to be able to do both. And somebody that has more sensitive skin, or maybe they've never tried any of those products, it's really hard for them to just start right out of the gate doing it immediately every day right away. And we don't recommend that typically anyway. So this concept behind skin cycling developed to really help people develop a process where they could actually kind of get the advantage of using those products, but tolerate them more and give the skin, some rest or periods of rest.
Okay.
So the concept of skin cycling, it's pretty simple. So night one, you do typically a chemical exfoliant. It might be an alpha hydroxy acid, like a glycolic acid. Some people might even use salicylic acid, a beta hydroxy acid. Then the next night, you take a recovery night or break and just hydrate or moisturize. The following night, day 3, that's when you would use a topical vitamin A. That might be a form of retinol over the counter, maybe even prescription strength, tretinoin. And then when you go to day 4, again, you take another night of recovery, rest, and hydration, and moisturize. So I always tell my patients that this is a great way to kind of get you acclimated. And sometimes we even skip exfoliation for a little while. It's just too much for people to do. And we add it in later. But it acclimates their skin, gets it used to it so that they can actually tolerate some of these medicines. So I think it's a great solution. The other thing too, it's interesting, as more information comes out, these studies of looking at our skin, the repair mechanisms at night, there are some theories that maybe we're overstimulating our skin too much with using topical retinoids every night, antioxidants during the day, we're exfoliating, maybe people are doing laser procedures to rejuvenate or something else mechanical in office, and we're just not giving the skin time to relax and truly rejuvenate and recover. And so some people wonder at some point, will that sort of like hypothesis that we need more time translate into more of a skin cycling as kind of the recommended routine? Will we shift from doing retinoids every night to maybe even doing them periodically and still see benefit? I have colleagues now that are like, no, if you're only using retinoid a couple nights a week, you don't derive any benefit. That's what people will say, and it's based on how they're studied. But have we really looked at these regimens and periods of rest to see how the skin might change and do? And I think they're going to look first, in animal studies, probably studies some mice, rats, look at this, see how it affects their skin. That's where there's some of the suggestion that it could be overstimulating, which I think is fascinating. So I think skin cycling will cycle back. It's going to keep coming around for tolerability, and it might have some science behind it that it's valuable too for truly maintaining skin health and optimizing that repair.
Okay. Yeah. That's good to know, because another thing I wanted to touch on, it's not necessarily a huge trend, but just how many actives are in, a 10-step routine and things like that. I feel like, we're using salicylic acid maybe in a cleanser every day. Do you think there's anyone who can use actives like that every day? Like maybe they shouldn't skin cycle and they should always be using an active, and maybe a retinol in there a couple nights a week?
This is where, it's hard, because when we talk in social media, we talk a lot of times in general terms. And it's really down to your specific skin needs and tolerability. If you are blessed with sensitive skin, it's harder for you to do those things. And so you may not be able to tolerate all those additives, and you have to do very bland and basic things for a while. And if you want to bring something in, you're going to probably do weaker forms of like a topical retinoid or vitamin C, because you need to see how your skin handles it. Maybe gradually you can increase potency. And then you might stay away from all these extra things. You might just be doing gentle cleanser or hydrating cleanser. And then somebody who maybe has been doing a vitamin A for a while, they kind of have tougher skin, oilier skin.
Barrier of steel.
Yes, they may be more likely to be able to handle that stuff. So that's why I think it's hard, because we speak in general terms, and then we'll try to put things out like, if you have oily skin, you might be able to do this, but it's not a one size fits all for skincare. And I think that's what's so unique, and that's where AI is going to help us probably. We'll help develop some of these skincare regimens, or look down probably at the molecular level for people's skin, and probably to be able to develop regimens or what you can tolerate or what you can do. That's where skincare is really moving, which I think is exciting for tech. But in overall, I think the additives, there's so many things you can do. We can go over when to do them, but do you necessarily need to be doing them all? No. I tell you, in addition to, again, stay with a gentle cleanser to be safe, a good moisturizer, the 3 things I recommend is doing a form of vitamin A in the evening, vitamin C in the morning, and your sunscreen. Those are your 3 essentials for skincare.
Yeah.
And if people can keep it that basic, if you want additives, you're like, I want to mix up my cleanser, talk with your dermatologist first, make sure you're going to tolerate it. Or if you're like, oh, I'm interested in chemical exfoliants, I want to add that in, we'll talk with them about the type, the concentration, and how frequent.
Okay.
Just so you're not overdoing it.
Is purging a thing?
You mean from the standpoint that acne can flare up?
Yeah, or more like maybe, for example, like I have pretty clear skin just because of, hormonal adjustments and spironolactone and things like that. So my skincare routine can be kind of simplified because I have orals that do a lot for my skin. But if I want to add something in, so let's say I start using tretinoin for the first time and within a couple weeks I start breaking out more, is that okay? Or is that a sign that you should cut back on it?
It's not a sign that you should cut back. It can happen with some of our medications, in particular our topical and oral retinoids that we use to treat acne. That kind of like purge effect can happen. And there's some things you can do to kind of help with that a little bit as well. But there's certain medicines that just tends to happen with. When people are actually using topicals and they tend to break out, often it's the topical itself that you just don't tolerate. It's not necessarily a purge. But some people will say, I used it for a while, it seemed to irritate me a little bit, and then it seemed to calm down.
Okay.
And so some people will claim that. Again, it's harder to explain that. Maybe it was an irritation factor, maybe it was coincidental.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I tell you, if you are able to use it and it's not bothering you, that's great. If you get a little purge effect, there's certain things we'll warn you. Definitely tretinoin is one of those. We have to give people the heads up.
Okay.
Because some people will see that, other people don't. And so you just want to make sure people know that if that happens, it tends to be temporary. And there are things we can do to kind of keep that calm. And then also it can be worth it. It's just kind of getting through a little bit of the hump before you get over it.
Yeah.
And then you see the benefits.
And that's usually like 6 to 8 weeks you give products time to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way you mentioned. Sometimes even for other regimens, we'll tell people 12 to 16.
Oh,
so
wow.
the one thing that I always tell them is we always want better skin yesterday. We want our best skin now. And so it's very difficult to tell someone, hey, slow and steady wins the race, especially when we're treating acne, because people want to give up and go to the next thing, and then they try the next thing, and then the next thing, and before you know it, they spent $200 at Sephora, and their acne is actually worse, not better. So patience is key, being simple with the regimen, making sure you tell your dermatologist everything you're using, because people forget to mention it actually can make their acne worse, and we don't even know. And it's working against the regimen. But some patience really pays off. You definitely have to put a little time into it, and you got to be consistent. A lot of people, they're not actually following the regimen as recommended, and we need to find out why. Maybe something we prescribed is too irritating. Maybe it's the smell, the feel, the texture. So it's also on our end too to find out why maybe it's not working.
Okay. So if someone has a new product that they say changed their skin in 2 days, probably not.
Probably not.
Okay.
I usually tell it,
it's for my friends listening.
I tell you, if there was something like that, I mean, it would really catch on. But sometimes it's just coincidental. It's lucky. I mean, I tell you, and it just could be something to have. But we don't really have a great miracle cure, especially for the acne realm, unfortunately.
Okay.
That is one of the things we tell people: try to be patient. But it's frustrating. We get it.
Yeah. Oh, so skin cycling, definite trot.
It is a trot. That is
Perfect.
for sure.
So best for last, we have salmon sperm facials.
Oh yeah, got it.
So you have heard of these?
Oh yes. I mean,
okay.
A lot of people. I mean, they're being done here in the United States. A lot of people have had them overseas too, and like come back and be like, oh my gosh, this is the next best thing. Yeah.
Interesting. So do you think it's worth it?
I think there's challenges with it because it's not being regulated. That's one of the problems too. But the whole concept behind it is there is a molecule that's found in salmon DNA. So what's unique about salmon sperm facials is actually what it's derived from. So if you look at the salmon DNA, there's actually a component called PDRN, let me make sure I say it here, polydeoxyribonucleotide. So I don't mispronounce this. So again, it's something that has been known, we think, to be assistive with DNA repair mechanisms, can help maybe potentially stimulate collagen. And it's actually not necessarily new. They actually looked back, and there were some fishermen that have actually used salmon sperm historically to treat non-healing wounds. So it's not like it's a total novel concept. I think just with putting it into skincare in light of like the anti-aging movement, what else can we do? We're always looking for the next best thing, right?
Oh, of course.
And this is fun because it gets your attention.
Yeah.
But it is fraught with some challenges because the components aren't really regulated here by the FDA in the United States. And so there can be some challenges with that not being regulated about, potency, safety, and those types of things. However, it's still being offered. I mean, there are places where you can get a salmon, sperm facial if you want it.
So is it actually anti-aging at all?
I mean, in theory, I think the problem is, nobody's looked at people, getting these and then been able to evaluate like what happens in the skin, right? Like what's going on with collagen? Did we see increased collagen because somebody got this facial 3 times a year, right? We just don't know. You know, and I think if they did more animal studies, maybe if they could demonstrate the pieces too, is it penetrating to get where it needs to go? How was it delivered? If it's not really regulated in their studies, then, you know, you're sometimes using an ingredient, but if it doesn't get to the scene of the crime, right, where it needs to have the action, is it really going to have the impact? So those are lots of questions with this. You know, I think around the safety and efficacy is the biggest piece. You know, people could be potentially, yes, allergic to some of the components used in the facial procedure, but people report definite improvements, especially like right after. You'll see this, you know, anecdotally and trendy, as you've probably seen people really highlight. And probably too, there's other components to the facial, probably humectant properties, maybe hyaluronic acid is being used, other things that could explain some of what they're appreciating. But again, long-term benefits, not going to have much information on. And again, I hate to go back to it, but it's just really, we go back to our tried and trues, which, you know, if somebody really wants to have, you know, stimulation of collagen and really help preservation of their skin, I'm going to recommend that topical retinoid, sunscreen, and then also an antioxidant blend, vitamin C, or a combination of others with it. That's where the data is.
Right. I'm assuming these are pretty expensive.
I've seen some of the pricing. So we were actually looking around. A lot of them are at least a few $100s. Some of them are more than that. Again, overseas, I don't know what they're charging, but just some of the bigger metropolitan areas, it's fun, it's trendy, it's new. I think Jennifer Aniston might have gotten one. So, you know, I think, you know, once you have somebody in Hollywood jump on the bandwagon, you know, and promote it, of course, people are going to be tempted to try it. And again, this is where I always talk about there's this risk benefit for a lot of patients. Like, what's the real risk? Well, you know, there's some potential risk with it not being regulated. You have to think about safety. Is it really going to work? I don't know. Probably, you know, right now, we don't see the long-term evidence that's going to be beneficial for you. But then people say, well, you know, what's the harm? I mean, maybe allergy, maybe some potential safety, you know, with irritation, those types of things. And so I tell you, know, it's a risk benefit for the patient. A lot of times they go and get the facial because it's meditative and relaxing. And at home, you could probably get a basic facial and it's probably going to provide you with the same benefit. Yes. And it's going to be cheaper, right?
Yeah.
So I think in the end, it's one of those things that, you know, when patients want to talk about, hey, this is what we know, and it's not a lot, but if it's something you can afford and you want to try it, we just have to be ready for potentially some irritation, allergy factors, other things that could happen. But if you want to add it into what you're doing, it's just, again, not a replacement for those foundational pieces of your skincare.
Are there any facials you think are worth the money?
It's hard to say if I would just say facials. I think what can be worth it is sometimes what they're adding into your facial procedures. So if you're somebody that would benefit, a lot of facials will include like a chemical peel, right? So sometimes they're going to include, you know, something with alpha hydroxy acids, beta hydroxy acids. They're going to target if you have acne concerns, if you're going to have anti-aging concerns, maybe dark spots, and they're going to use a mandelic acid. So there can be benefits as a part of the facial procedure with some of those components. Definitely can be benefits too if people need some exfoliation, you know, where they can get off some of the dead skin cells. Facials, though, can cause people to break out, as you probably know. So I always break out. It's a lot of product. It's a lot of multi-layers. But I think what's, you know, facial as a whole, I tell people, again, do we have data that facials are the end-all be-all? No, but some of the components that are offered, I think, throughout it could give some benefit to patients. The downside is a lot of what they do, it's a maintenance. Like a one-time, you know, treatment with glycolic acid isn't going to get rid of your acne forever. Is it something maybe to add in, again, to your prescription treatment regimen? Potentially. And then there is, you know, the relaxing benefit. I tell you, there's a psychological benefit to people that get facials. They just feel better, right? Like, how relaxed are you?
It's
like I'm a zombie after.
A heated bed.
Yes.
Like,
so I'll tell you, yes, I'll go and get them. And I think they can be nice add-in. But if you are using topical retinoids, you got to let them know, because sometimes it does make you ultra-sensitive, the things they want to do in a facial. So you got to make sure you let your esthetician know that too.
Good to know.
And they'll sometimes just ask, do you use Retin-A? They'll use the branded term. And they may not even ask, like, are you using retinol, retinaldehyde? Are you potentially using adapalene, tretinoin, tazarotene? They won't get specific. So I think you need to talk with your esthetician before and really find out, again, your unique skin needs, and check with your dermatologist too.
I didn't know Retin-A was, when you guys say that, I'm like, oh, that's the fancy name for retinol.
Yeah, it's a branded version of tretinoin. So, and a lot of people, just because it was so popular, a lot of people just still call their tretinoin their Retin-A. Yeah, especially if they had Retin-A back in the day.
The more you know. Retin-A back in the day.
Yeah,
bars.
I know. Here you go.
So, salmon sperm facials, Trot or not?
Not Trot. Yeah. I mean, I tell people, you know, I just think there's better bang for your buck, and we need to see some more evidence, I think, you know, on safety and efficacy. But again, it's just not something I would have you waste time or money necessarily on, unless you just want to add it in and you get that, you know, meditative benefit.
So what is a favorite trend of yours that we did not go over today?
I have to say it's hypochlorous acid spray, because it's been all over the place. And you know, I loved it even before it was all over the place. And it's so interesting to me how it's just picked up in interest. And I love it because it's more than a single duty dermatologic drug or medication, right? It does double, triple, quadruple duty. So my husband loved to use it as a spray. He does it on scalp post shaving so he doesn't break out. And then go to the gym, right? You don't have time to shower, spray your face, chest, back. Great post workout so you don't break out. Armpits carry a little extra odor that you don't love. Great spray to use in the armpits. My
Okay.
5-year-old, his feet stink to high heaven. Great to spray on his feet as well. So I love a product that can do multiple things.
Yeah.
And so it's very inexpensive. You can get more expensive brands that are part of certain product lines. If you like a particular
Right.
product line, you can get their version. But you can go to CVS or Walgreens and get like the $7, $8 version,
Oh, yeah.
put it in a spray, and it's great to travel, take with you. And I'll tell you another bonus as a dermatologist with wearing a mask a lot, especially in surgery. Great preventative tool for maskne, which I have not seen yet.
Mask.
So when we talk about it, bring a masky back, with COVID,
Okay.
it actually can help kind of calm that down. Because I think, tell me, when you wear that mask, it's like a terrarium on your face, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people still break out if they're in surgery all day, or if you're sick and you're wearing a mask because you're just trying to, I know obviously be courteous to others.
Yeah.
It's a nice kind of tool to kind of minimize some of those breakouts.
Okay.
And it's something that's just totally, I think it was underrated for years, and
Yeah.
I'm glad it's made a comeback. It's like the comeback hit of
Hypochlorous
2025.
acid,
Yeah.
extra Trot.
Yeah, extra Trot.
Trotties use hypochlorous acid.
The whole family.
So what do you So what trends do you think we'll see in 2026? Good or bad?
Yeah, I think the exciting thing that actually could be good and bad is the use of AI that I think will become more trendy, especially in offices. We'll be talking about it as much, maybe not. It's not going to replace us as dermatologists, but I think we're going to be able to really look, at anyone's particular skin needs. Like, first of all, interview, find out what do you not love, what do you not like, but then probably even look, more at maybe even gene expression profiling or the molecular level of your skin, where it's at, potentially the age of your skin, and how can we develop a plan that could work for you. And when I mean age, I don't mean age in the sense just brown lines or brown, spots, wrinkles, that type of thing, but it's like the health. Like, kind of we equate age more with not being healthy. But I think over time, what we're going to see with longevity medicine is we're going to equate aging kind of being pro-aging.
Yeah.
And we're all going to get older, but we're going to have healthier lives as we do so.
That's
and I
right.
think what AI will help us do is have healthier skin as
Yeah.
well. And it's just going to be a tool we'll be able to use. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah. Do you think it makes it a lot more accessible? Because I think people are very scared of AI
Yeah.
taking over. There's not much conversation with AI in healthcare.
Mhm.
It's mainly like, how is AI rotting our brains?
Mhm.
We're
Yeah.
using AI to replace things.
Mhm.
So do you think it is going to make healthcare more accessible for people?
It potentially could, and AI is not going to replace us. It is meant to be used with the dermatologist. So augmented intelligence is probably the better replacement. So that's when you're using AI with human intelligence together
Yeah.
to actually, provide a better service or skill. And I think that's where we're going to do it. Because if you think of the just plethora of product that's out there, it just is overwhelming.
Yeah, it
And
is.
I think if you had a database of what's available, certain ingredients, certain benefits, even reviews, down to a molecular level, somebody's skin needs, you can come up with all these interesting concoctions and things that actually might benefit patients. And if they don't like one, you could substitute another. And so I think that's where there'll be some benefit to put it together. And it's going to simplify some of the craziness that surrounds skincare. Again, it won't be perfect. Nothing's going to be perfect, but it's kind of an exciting way to use technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is very exciting. That is all I have for you today.
Well, thank you for joining us for the
Yes.
skincare trends of
Thank you for having
2025. And stay tuned for the next episode of Derm-It Trotter. Don't swear about skincare.
Yeah.